What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of you for ReZero Season 3. This is episode 4, and with me, as always, I have Blue Spade.
Yeah. It's kind of weird that, a lot of people are surprised that we're already halfway through the first quarter of this season. Um,
Yeah.
because
Well, we
I
did
guess
get like a over hour long episode, so I mean,
yeah,
but yeah, it also does feel like it's moving at a fairly fast pace as well, especially compared to last season. I mean, last season definitely had it wasn't bad by any means, but it was definitely like a lot slower paced. It felt like
yeah,
season 3 feels like, and I guess it's just because there's a lot more happening and it's a more action oriented arc, but it just feels like it is moving like at a much faster pace.
yeah. So we start off well, right after the last episode left off, in which Garfield and Mimi are looking for Liara's kids. But they're confronted by two hooded figures, which, of course, of course they're wearing the whole
Witch
witch
cultists.
cult outfit. Yeah, the witch cultist, and of course, it cuts us forward back to where Subaru and the others are having the meeting of how they're going to approach the witch cultists and what they're planning. And of course, we already know that they're looking for the remains of the witch that resides in the city, but they realize that the witch remains are in an area in which uh that requires you to sink the entire city itself in order to get those remains.
Yeah, apparently, I guess that's what the witch cult, I guess, is planning to do, is to flood the city.
Yeah, and then soon afterwards, Garfield arrives, carrying like a I guess a mortally injured Mimi, which showcases like what happened in their fight against the two witch cultists. Which turns out, like, the guy had like at least four arms at first, and of course Garfield expresses a huge amount of guilt of what happened to Mimi, um, before, like, he gets pep talked into wanting to take revenge on the witch cultists that they fought against.
Yeah, apparently during the fight too, Garfield is just he's continually distracted by visions of Elsa, and it's basically like hindering his ability to even fight. Like because Elsa, I guess, keeps haunting him, and in his visions. So that's kind of like why he got as injured, or or at least I guess partially why they kind of lost that fight.
Yeah, and what's also interesting too is that Reinhardt is not involved in the fight because his
Yeah,
father is holding Felt hostage to keep Reinhardt from leaving, which is like, why? I don't know, like, what the reason why his dad would do this, considering that there's a lot of mayhem going on in the city with the witch cultists. Unless, I mean, I can't say for sure if Heinkel isn't really working with the witch cult, but it's not really working for the benefit of
yeah.
anyone if he's really doing this.
I mean, when he was first introduced, he didn't really come off as as someone who's really like a good person. So I'm not really surprised he's doing this. But it was surprising, like, even though Felt is being held hostage, she was still like encouraging Reinhardt to fight regardless, I guess, of her being held hostage.
Yeah, but Reinhardt is still reluctant and wanting to leave because
Yeah,
I think he knows this, how far his dad is willing to go to hurt someone he cares about. Because
yeah.
I mean, but yeah, that's basically it. But so Subaru and the others, of course, go out into the city to plan their counterattack. And of course, they go back to the same place in which Garfield and Mimi were confronted by those two hooded figures. And it looks like that they were able to have an advantage due to their sheer amount of numbers. But of course, the four armed man turns out he had even more arms hidden inside his body.
Oh, we should also
Uh,
split up, or point out too that they also split up with I think Julius and some of the other characters, like as they go another direction, and
yeah,
like because basically like Subaru had comes up with a strategy of what they should do, and they decide basically to split up and like tackle two different areas, I guess.
yeah. And then they also finally come across one of the Sin Archbishops. I think was
It was
their name,
Capella.
Capella. But we see her in her dragon form.
Yeah, which is
Just
kind of surprising. Like I didn't even really know until I guess recently that she could even transform into a dragon. Like we saw a dragon in the opening, but I didn't actually know it was her. So yeah, she can turn into a dragon and she can also talk while she's in her dragon form. What's really surprising is of course like a lot of people were pointing out is that the dragon isn't CG. It's actually like hand drawn and 2D animated, which I think is the most surprising thing. Because
yeah,
we're really used to just anytime there's a dragon in an anime, it feels like most of the time it's CG. So I
yeah.
mean, I guess props to White Fox for not doing that.
I
Uh,
mean, it's better this way because you could really see Capella's expressions as being that
yeah,
dragon.
yeah, and I mean she is really expressive in her dragon form too, and she has all these different faces, and it's kind of horrifying too, especially like the scene where she gets like most of her face ends up getting burnt off and regenerating. I mean, can you imagine how that would even look? And if it was just CG, I think
Yeah.
it definitely benefits from being like 2D animated and hand drawn the way it was.
Unless somehow White Fox got the same amount of budget that the people who worked on what was it Godzilla minus one, in which we saw Godzilla regenerating his face after getting his face blown off by a mine. But
Yeah.
yeah, well, but yeah, overall, I did like the dragon design, and the fact that it's hand drawn this time instead of being CG. Um, so I think who else? I'm trying to remember like the whole sequence of this, but I
So
do.
basically, like Wilhelm and the others break off to fight some of the witch cultists. Like Subaru tries to distract Capella. I guess just by like like saying a lot of stuff to sort of like make her break her composure or something.
Yeah, just
Basically like to distract her long enough. Actually, I don't think Julius was one of the people that split up because he was still in Subaru's party.
yeah,
Because Julius is the one that ends up actually like burning part of her face off.
yeah. But of course, she, like you said, she regenerated it after that attack, and I think remember, like Subaru, Crush, and Julius like get on up on the rooftop of the building, and they come across the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony.
Yeah, so
Uh,
this was kind of confusing too, and some people were pointing out that they were afraid this was going to happen in, I guess, the Crunchyroll translation, because if we remember, like the Archbishop of Gluttony, his name was like, what was it like, Rybate and Kaidos or something like that. But in this scene, he introduces himself as Roy, which it kind of had me scratching my head because I'm like, that's not his name though. So I'm not really sure what happened there, unless there's like a story reason for it or something. But
I I don't know. It's like there's a lot of inconsistencies with the translation. It like throughout the majority of the of season 3 so far because of the way they like especially like
well,
how they try to translate
yeah,
Subaru's like
I was going to point out too. There was a scene that we didn't really talk about this. I think it was episode 3, where Subaru said something like Amelia is my waifu, and that's not really like an accurate translation. People were saying like he should have said something like she's my bride, and they just translated him saying that, I guess, for some kind of comedic effect, but it felt like it was actually like out of place, I guess, like it shouldn't have been translated that way.
yeah, and I think they sort of did the same thing for episode 2. I can't remember what it was, but it's yeah, it's just these weird I don't know who's translating this show because honestly, like normally nobody would ever do something this ridiculous
Well,
to
Crunchyroll
throw people off
doesn't
like this.
really have the best reputation, I guess, when it comes to translation or just translations. But I really think it just seems to depend on whoever's working on the series.
Yeah, if like I remember like years back when I went to a Crunchyroll Expo panel, is like they have like a very limited staff that translates all of their shows. Like they have like maybe at
Yeah.
least I don't know, maybe at least a dozen people translating certain shows under certain genres.
Which is
And
pretty crazy because like I mean, it's such a. I mean, how much is the company worth, and they can't afford to like hire more translators? I mean, they only have a small group of them. Like, what are they? Where is all the rest of their money going?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like they look at, what they do is like they look at the original Japanese dub. They listen to it, they read up on the pronunciations of certain characters, and then they write it down, and then they just put it into the final product that we currently see today. But as of right
Hmm.
now, I don't know who they specifically hired to put put this kind of material, like, to translate like whatever Subaru's saying or whoever else is saying this and this and that.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, but going back to it, so yeah, of course now they have to deal with the Archbishop of Gluttony who's just shown up, and it's going to be really interesting considering the Archbishop, Gluttony is the one who is responsible for consuming Rem's existence. So
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see if Subaru kind of like breaks his composure and tries to do something stupid. Um,
yeah, and
but
then
we actually do have another scene too after this with which this scene was so crazy to me, like that they decided to end it the way they did in this episode with this particular scene. I saw, of course I already spoiled it for myself because I saw people were talking about it on Twitter before I watched the episode. um, but basically we cut back to Amelia where she wakes up in bed and she's naked, and then we see Regulus Cornelius enter the room, and I forget what else he says, but
well, that one line he said at the end of
oh
the episode was
yeah,
that, "Are you a virgin?" which caught everybody by surprise, and like how direct he was in asking that.
yeah. I feel like the way this scene might play out in the next episode, like we know that Amelia doesn't really is kind of dense when it comes to stuff like this, so she might think that she isn't because she kissed Subaru or something like that because she thought that kissing would make you pregnant. So maybe she might just tell him that she isn't, and but I guess he's maybe asking that because as we know, like Regulus has basically essentially like I guess a harem of wives. So and he's I guess looking to add Amelia to the harem. So maybe all of his wives have to be like virgins before he decides to marry them or something. Maybe that's why he's asking her that question. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, so it was like just a crazy sort of cliffhanger to end that episode on. But it was a really good episode. I thought the standout, of course, was just the way that the Capella looked in her dragon form. Apparently the next episode is going to be very action heavy because like people are saying there's like 5 or 6 different animation directors. I guess that happens when there's like a really action heavy episode. So I guess we're going to see a lot more fight scenes in the next episode. Um,
yeah, and,
uh,
and of course the way they're directing these episodes is pretty spot on. Especially like they're not putting as much of the opening nor the credits in each episode. Of course, there,
yeah,
there were the credits in this episode, of course, but we didn't see the actual opening for episode 4 because they wanted to spend more time and uh, in showing off this whatever story they can put out with the time they have.
right. Yeah, I thought it was a great episode. I don't really didn't really have any complaints about it aside from just the weird translation, which I kind of hope it does eventually get fixed because I feel like a lot of anime onlys are going to be really confused if they read the translation because it kind of ruins some scenes because it's if the translation is wrong, you're going to get the wrong impression from a scene or what a character says or what they meant.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean it can definitely like mess some things up. So I mean hopefully
yeah.
that gets addressed.
I just hope like the English dub doesn't suffer through this because
Yeah,
was it
I
Sean
hear sometimes with the English dubs they use like I guess the official uh the official translation of the sub version I guess as a source for the dub. So I mean hopefully that's not what they do with this.
Yeah,
Uh,
but Sean Chiplock, who's the English voice actor for Subaru, he's very particular of how he wants to portray his characters. So
mhm.
I just hope he doesn't like, I don't know, just like literally just read off the translation over what over what Subaru said in in episode 3, as an example, but still
Yeah.
Chip like he's very dedicated in how he wants to portray the character that he voices. So
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, at least from what I've read about him, he does seem like he's a fan of the series. So maybe he'll actually like tell them like, "Hey, that's not right," or "That's not what he meant," or something.
yeah,
But
like he was willing to I guess do that was like the singing part
yeah,
between the Subaru and what was it,
I think
the
it was
other girl.
Liliana.
Yeah, Liliana. There was that scene in which they were singing in Japanese, but they didn't do an English dub translation for that scene. So Sean Chiplock decided to do a fan translation of himself singing that particular song. So
Mhm.
I think he uploaded it on his Twitter bio. So
Yeah,
it wasn't too bad the way he performed it. It just sucked that they didn't put it into the episode.
yeah, yeah. So I guess we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about the episode, though. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, it still sucks that it's already halfway through the first core, and considering that this is only like 8 episodes per core for this season, and then of course we have to wait another few months until February for the second half of 8 episodes to come out.
Yeah, I guess these arcs must be fairly short in comparison to like arc 4, considering arc 4 was like a whole season. I guess arc 5 must be short in comparison to that, and also I guess arc 6, if that's the case, because I mean,
Yeah,
as we know, like they are also covering arc 6. So
yeah.
uh,
There's I don't know. It just like I did remember what you said that
well,
it was going to be a little
I've
bit
just
longer
heard. I
than
don't
this.
know if it's confirmed, but I have heard people say like it's supposed to be over 30 episodes, and I don't know if that's like confirmed to be true or not, or if the official episode count is actually going to be like 13 or not 30, 16, and that's like the actual episode count. Um, but there were a lot of rumors that it was going to be like a longer season,
Yeah.
before it was before it came out.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see how they're going to adapt this particular arc because it's just a little bit confusing as yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot of mixed messaging going on with how they're working on this show.
Yeah, but yeah, guys. Until next time, we will see you all later.